Welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast, where we talk about everything health, happiness, cannabis. We'll delve into all aspects of what it means to live a powerful, healthy life. Everything from exercise to nutrition to mindfulness, and how to use cannabis as a means to alleviate some of the most common health issues we face. My motivation and passion come from the fact that I personally had to explore all these areas to deal with lifelong depression and mood disorder. For me, it's personal. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey, folks, welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast. This is your host, Nurse Mark. This week, we have Melissa Jane, MJ Stapley, who's the founder of MJ Hybrid Solutions. And that's a training company, an online training company for dispensary personnel and really anybody who's in the cannabis business. Really fascinating talk about why education is important. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, folks, welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast. This week's guest is Melissa MJ Stapley from MJ Hybrid Solutions. What's up, MJ?
Going on, Nurse Mark?
It's great here in New York City on lockdown. How's it going out there in LA?
Same. It's
Same.
quiet out. Yep.
Why don't you tell the folks how your meeting was this afternoon when you went to Starbucks? That's a great way to start off because this whole coronavirus thing really is serious, and finally people are taking heed. So, how was your meeting this afternoon?
Yeah. So I had to go meet a client that to catch up on some things and to give him some stuff. And so we're like, let's just meet at a Starbucks, right? We planned this over the weekend. And this morning they put, what's today's date? March 16th. They decided to lock down all the restaurants and venues, entertainments, and bars. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, well, we're still going to meet at Starbucks. We'll figure this out when we get there. And sure enough, all the seats are put away. So it's just grab and go. And it's pouring rain today. So I go and pull in the parking lot. There's security. I wait for them to get there. And I'm just like, look, guys, let's go grab a coffee. We'll just jump in my Jeep and, I'll just go through everything here and give you what you need. And I pulled up my laptop and used my hotspot.
Perfect.
Couldn't even get Starbucks free Wi-Fi.
Hey, well, there you go. So you're so at least you got something from Starbucks other than the coffee.
But
crazy times.
Yeah, it was dead. Yeah, just everywhere. And, being in LA, it's raining right now too. And obviously when it rains in LA, people freak out more so too and stay in.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that might be a good thing in addition that it's raining, except for the coldness. But it's we'll see what happens. I'm actually driving in the morning to Arizona to visit family. I was already supposed to go. And so I kind of just if we are going to get quarantined, maybe it's best I be with my family. I feel like LA is kind of like New York, right? It's such a bigger city. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, maybe I am safer in Arizona. I don't know.
I don't
know. Worse.
That is the question. Everybody's trying to figure out, right?
Myself or being with family? Am I going to, which one's better?
You know what? Go with family.
Yeah, I can hop around.
Yeah.
As long as they don't totally lock it down the streets.
Well, let's hope for the best. Hopefully this thing will be dying down in another 30 days, 45 days. We'll be not back to normal, but new normal.
The new normal, yes.
A new norm. All right. Let's talk about the cannabis business because that's what we're here to talk about. You've been in the cannabis biz, MJ Hybrid Solutions, for 3 years now?
Well, I've been in the industry for 6 years.
Oh, in total. All right. Give me the backstory. How'd you end up in this crazy business? Because 6 years is like an eternity in this world.
Oh, yeah. So I was in sales. I was working for a for-profit education company, an online company, and I was actually at a bar at a happy hour with a friend meeting up, and we were catching up talking about sales. I was a sales manager. She used to work in that same company and had just recently left. And this guy was sitting next to us. He came there to watch the football game, and I could tell he was kind of creeping in on our conversation. I'm like, this guy keep leaning over. Then so he finally interrupted. And he's like, have you guys heard of CBD? And I'm like, no, a little bit. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Weed, just
and this is 6 years ago?
Yeah, 6 years ago.
Oh, it's unheard of.
The fall of 2014. So almost 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So he pulls out, these little oil jars, these 1 gram of CBD, the gold oil.
Yeah.
And starts talking about it. He's like, yeah, we're one of the first distributors. It was cannabis at the time. They're now CV Sciences. They do plus CBD oil. If you're familiar with any CBD, that's probably one you would know of.
Right.
And they, so he, started giving me the spiel on it's going to be the next best thing. We're going to grow so much next year. We need salespeople. I heard you talking about sales. Like, if you're interested, come check it out. And I was like, well, can I try it? Can I, I take sleeping pills. I take Tylenol PM. I've always had a sleeping problem. So I'm like, well, it helped me with sleep. He's like, oh yeah. It's going to totally help you with sleep. And so, I'm making every claim in the world. Sure. And so I was like, let me try it this weekend.
Great for your hair. Yeah.
And this is a great story actually for you, because I know you've gone through the Landmark Forum.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if I've actually told you this yet or not, but so prior to that, 6 months prior to that, I had gone through the Landmark Leadership Program.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And so, you put on like you volunteer, you have to come up with a charity that you do. I did a 5K run for Babies.
Yep.
I had a nephew that passed away.
Self-Expression Leadership Program.
Yes.
SELP. Very familiar with that.
And so they do, towards the end, you get up and you kind of talk about what you're going, like what you're putting out there, what you want. And I literally got up and was like, I want to work in a new industry that is growing, where I can either start my own business or grow within a company, but it's making a difference, but it's a new industry that's like, for me to start and build and grow within. Isn't that crazy? And I knew nothing.
Not at all. Not at all. If you know what, you'll read about it in my new book, but it's not crazy. You totally made that happen. You just threw it out there and you accepted that it was going to happen.
And so, so then when that came up, it kind of, in the back of my head, I was like, maybe I do need to look into this opportunity. And so I tried the CBD oil over the weekend. I didn't take any Tylenol PM and it worked. I slept. I had to take a lot of it, but it worked. And so then I started just getting very intrigued and research. And I went in and met. So I emailed them to tell them it worked. He's like, great, come in. I want you to come in and meet the team. And they literally had 1 or 2 salespeople already. They were just starting their sales division. They were a manufacturer or distributor first, and then they just had started their own sales division. So I went in a bunch, and then I was like, I got to do it. I couldn't believe it, what I started reading and learning about. But it 6 years ago, when you're thinking about CBD and CBD products, trying to sell it, it's a completely different game than it is now, right?
Oh yeah.
6 years ago, CBD was a nobody. Nobody knew what CBD was.
Well, it was because it was all pilot program, right?
Yeah.
You got hemp pilot program was Kentucky, and I can't even remember what other state, right? So you had to be part of this specific pilot program.
Started that year, 2015. It was kind of right when EPA or GW Pharma was starting to do the studies. And so literally it was like, okay, just call whoever and try to sell it, And I'm like,
hey, I got this magic elixir.
I'll go today. Call. And, you're just kind of calling as a sales rep. I had no training. They gave me a 1 sheet. And I actually found this sheet a few weeks ago. I was telling someone and I was looking at it, and then you look at that information and it's so different now. It talked about how CBD really only helps the CBD or the CB2 receptor, doesn't work with the CB, all the different things back then with the immunity. And I was just,
it was brand new.
Yeah, it was brand new. So you're just throwing it out there. And and that was also at the time too, when it's still, it was full spectrum, still had a little bit of THC, but everyone just, as it started to grow, people just assumed it didn't have THC in it, right? Or they weren't going to get high.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting at, events, handing out in big guaps, for people to try. And we had people that would come back and you could tell they were high out of their mind, these doctors. And we were going to these events. We're the first CBD company. And it's just I feel weird. Yeah. I'm like, no, you guys, you still have to get high. You can still get high. You have to be careful. And so that was for me, such a learning curve, because it's one, nobody knew about it. So how do I sell it? How do you sell something nobody knows about, that they don't believe in it like you do? How do you educate them and help them understand the main thing, right? The difference between CBD and THC and products, or weed versus hemp. How do you educate? How do you sell it and get people to trust you and trust that it's going to help them, right? Because people start calling in. It's oh, I heard it helped for this. Will it help me with that? And then there's the whole claims. You can't make claims. So how do you teach them or guide them to understand? And so that's something that I really focused on, that I got really good at, and working with my clients. And so I was there a year, and then I got offered a job and it was an actual client of ours that asked me to come help start their sales division. And they were a THC and CBD manufacturing. So we're doing a CBD side, but they were also manufacturing THC products. So it was there that I really started working more with dispensaries versus where I was working more with healthcare and doctors, and e-commerce, mainly at that CBD company at the time. So it was there I started working with dispensaries. And that's really when I was like, okay, what's going on with training? Like, not only education, because they didn't know anything, but now it's becoming mainstream. More people are learning about it. How are you going to bridge the gap between the new consumer and this old school cannabis way, right? The old school crop tops with the girls and the cute girls and the crop tops, changing the strain name because of what's popular. So it's like, how are you going to...
It really was chaos, right? It was nuts.
And so, yeah, and then the things were kind of a little rocky at that company I was at. So then I was like, you know what, I should start consulting or maybe training, go to this dispensary and help training, because I developed this training process that I'd used. Anyways, I did training and leadership in my past companies that I worked with. So I conformed it to more cannabis and how to speak and what I did, right, when I started, and then how to educate. Because the education part's hard. And as a nurse, you know this because you're doing it all day long. It's difficult. It's hard to educate people and help them understand it. So you have to educate them from their understanding, their level of understanding. That's what I always say, is like asking them questions. So to me, being able to effectively communicate and that sales training, that piece is so crucial.
For the lowest common denominator. You have to make it so that somebody who's completely uneducated actually understands it at the end of the day.
Yeah. So then when I was there, I kind of started working on it, and I was very blessed to have a friend that she knew someone that owned a couple shops, and they wanted CBD training, and they had reached out to her because she was working at that CBD company I was at. And she was like, well, actually my friend's working on a training program. And the starts of it, maybe she should come, like I'll have her come out and help you because she's looking for some beta partners. And it's one of those things when you start a business, right? I didn't have it in order. I had written it out, but it's like, you just have to start seeing if this even sticks. I got to see if the 6-step process even
totally have to do it.
Get it, or if it goes right over their head,
Yep.
So
Start ugly.
And worked with them. They were total trap shops. It was right before it went recreational. It was 2017. So in the summer, I hadn't put anything online yet. January or February of 2017 is when I would start going and working with them, and just going in a couple times and doing a little bit of training. They saw a huge jump in their sales. And so then I was like, okay, this is going to work, and then I met someone that did a cannabis accelerator in San Diego. They do a little bit of investment, and we talked about putting it online. So obviously digital, that's kind of the way everything goes. And obviously it's scalable and
right. Exactly.
Accessible. So yeah, that's how I call it the MJ hybrid training system. It's a twofold approach training, cross training of effective communication and cannabis education.
So you cover both. Okay. So you're training dispensary employees now.
Yes. My primary focus, especially when I started, was dispensaries.
So even though you started out in sales and the consumer end of things, did that give you sort of your ideas for what somebody would need to know in order to effectively work with the public?
Yes.
All right.
So that was the thing, is I took it, and I still have great relationships with some of my clients that I started with, and I worked with, it was both B2B and B2C where I was at when we were selling CBD, that first company, because you had people calling in that wanted to know, because at that time, no one's going to just go online and buy CBD. It was question after question. So I was dealing with consumers who wanted to know. And then I was also dealing with businesses and selling to them. So I have a B2B sales training. Like I created a 6-step process. I call it the MJ hybrid training system with the cannabis education and the sales training. The sales training is a 6-step process. And so it can kind of be conformed, like, if you're consumer facing employee, as well as I have it geared, the 6-step process geared towards if you're like a brand ambassador, you're going in to try to sell your product to a dispensary. And then I took a lot of that information and also developed it for CBD hemp as well. So for CBD retailers, a sales training and then education. And so the education it's not me, I'm not a doctor or scientist. So I partnered up with Dr. John Talleyrand.
I thought for sure you were a doctor.
No, I think I might know a lot more than 90%.
Well, occasionally you have, right? They're not trained at all on this stuff.
No, I mean, yeah.
And you've been doing this for a while. So, yeah. And
my whole thing is making it approachable, right? And so it's different. Like for you as a nurse, and you're going and you're teaching other nurses or health and wellness or other doctors, there's a higher level you have to get deeper into.
Oh, you have to. Whereas, I call it getting into the weeds. You got to definitely do it, right? But if you talk like that to a consumer or to somebody at the dispensary, maybe at the dispensary they'd get it. But man, you're right.
But it's keeping it approachable and simple and basic for bud tenders, right? Yeah, because they're not doctors or scientists, and so you can't get too technical. You have to keep it that way. And that's what when I teamed up with Dr. Talleyrand, that's what he loved about it. He's like, I don't want to teach it because it's hard as a doctor or scientist to try to teach it to someone who's not on your brainwave, right?
Right.
You're kind of like that 90-10.
It's a different language.
Yeah, completely different
language. Totally a different language.
And so I was like, he'll write scripts and I take like half the stuff out. Back to him. Or I'll be like, we don't need to get too deep into this. So when I'm sitting there and I do the training videos myself, so when I'm sitting there reading off the script, the education, especially with the education, you're getting into like talking about the acidic versus neutral, or different types of cannabinoids, and you start naming off. It's a tongue twister. Tetrahydrocannabinol, you get deeper. It's a tongue twister. So I'm like, if I can't pronounce it, I can't expect sales reps and other people either to understand, or especially new people that are coming into the industry to learn.
And you know what? You're going to train them and they're going to try to use those words with the consumer, and the consumer is going to go, what?
Yeah, exactly. And then they're just like, I don't know, just give me, and then when consumers, just like when you go to the doctor, right? If you're told something, you want to know, okay, what can I do to fix it? Like, what do I need? And so that's what these consumers they're going in. They're not going to sit there and be like, well, wait, how does it work with this brain cancer? Can you break it down? It's just like, no, I have this. What can I take?
Right.
So then now the bud tenders like almost becomes the nurse or the doctor, where they're relying on them.
I know. And that's really been a hot topic of conversation in the medical community, the medical cannabis community, is that, there are people who are sort of dispensing medical advice that, have a knowledge of cannabis, but not really a knowledge of what's going on physiologically in the body. So it's sort of like,
understanding how different it is.
We got to partner, you know what I mean? That's what we're all trying to do, is how do we partner in the medical side of things? How do we partner with bud tenders and, so that everybody gets what they need?
Yeah, it is. It's a slippery slope. And I got a lot of heat at the beginning from nurses, and because when I was promoting, I was promoting a lot of the sales training, and a lot of people look at it as like, oh, you're teaching bud tenders how to sell, like giving them sales tips. Like they shouldn't be you can't sell. And so I was trying, I had to try to take a few steps back to be like, okay.
Now hold on now. Now here's where we get into a slippery slope, because I don't know how many times you see on TV now, pharmaceutical companies that are doing these great ads that make it look like if you take their medication and ignore the fact that it could possibly cause cancer, but it'll take care of whatever it is that's ailing you, that you should do it. Like they're spinning it positive, and it's a sales mode. Absolutely.
But there's two different types of sales. And I think that's what a lot of people that don't do sales or don't really know much, you go back to that car salesman mentality, right? And so that's what I had to start putting out content to let people understand. Like I'm trying to give them sales effective communication techniques, and where they ask the right questions
that's what it is.
The consumer versus not like, oh, you need this, or forcing a product because you're trying to sell it. My whole thing is, if you give the customer what they need, they're confident in what they're purchasing, you're going to sell more over a longer period of time.
Absolutely.
And they're going to always
absolutely, because what happens? You've built a relationship based on trust.
Yeah.
You say, hey, you know what? MJ gave me the right scoop, and what she said actually was what happened. So that's great.
And then it's guiding them. Yeah. And you bring out maybe 2 or 3 products that in your head, or you've heard people use, right? And we all know it's still so anecdotal. It's still, we don't know what product's going to necessarily work for someone. It's trial and error a lot.
Right.
So you have to kind of expand it, bring it out, but then get the customer excited and get them confident in kind of making that decision, right? So you can't really make claims. You shouldn't be dosing. So you kind of have to put it back on them so that they're confident to try it. And so even if they do buy something and it doesn't work, they'll still come back to you because they trust you and they know, but you're being authentic with them. Like, hey, you have to play with the dosing a bit. I can't tell you if it's going to work or not. So you have to be genuine and authentic. So
many variables, and it really is. It's a different world, especially for healthcare providers to try to.
And I get it, and I've talked to a couple other nurses that are like, they say that like, this medical patient should not be going into these recreational dispensaries. But the fact of the matter is they're going to, because a lot of them don't. One, they don't want to go to their doctor. They're scared to admit it.
I say it all the time. I tell people all the time. I have this conversation with other medical cannabis people. I say, listen, if there is a recreational component in the state that you're in, your medical sales are going to go down. You're not going to see as many people because of all the reasons that you just said. People don't want to go and have the conversation with their doctor. They don't want to be registered in a program that their name goes into a database with the state. They don't want it in their health record because of the stigma that's still attached, right?
And people realize like 80% of people, like there really is no difference of recreational medical, right? A lot of people get confused thinking like recreational cannabis is different than medical cannabis. And that's the other thing. And that data shows like 60, you have that, it's like that 60 to 80%, depending on what area you're in, that are going in to take it for one of those 5 areas: sleep, mood, appetite, inflammation. What's the last? There's 5.
Yeah.
But so that kind of falls within that, right? Anxiety. Yeah. So even people that just like to get high, like they like to get high because it chills them out, or it makes them feel a certain way. So it's their medicine. So I think, a lot of people get confused about that, but it's like, well, no, these recreational, they need training because these people, like the 60, 70%, at least for the next probably 3 to 5 years, as these other states open up, are going to go in there and need that. Going into recreational for some type of medical purpose.
I think there's a huge opportunity I think in the nursing community for us to be educators for people who don't necessarily want to have it in their medical record, but need to have some sort of information about it. And because, there are some drug-to-drug interactions with cannabis if somebody's on other medications that they got to be aware of, right?
Yeah, there are symptoms.
I have a perfect example. I have a friend who is on some medications, because she's diabetic and, has been for a long time. She's been on some blood thinners, especially blood thinners. There's an interaction. So, she's on Coumadin, which has to be, you have to really test the blood to make sure that it is at a certain level, how thin it is, right? And she couldn't figure out why her numbers were just off. And she was taking CBD like all the time, right? And I'm like, oh, honey, please, let's have a conversation. Let me help you out. You got to have this conversation with your doc, tell them that you're taking something that affects metabolism, so.
Well, and it's like too and it's frustrating for you and doctors when you do work with patients. Say, this is the type of product that would probably be a good fit for you, and then they go to their local dispensary and they don't necessarily carry that product. So then
number one, they don't carry the product, and number two, they get sold on something else, right? So it's like, no,
it's really frustrating. I totally get it.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we bridge that gap? And it's hard because there are so many products,
education
available. Yeah, exactly. That's what. And I think a lot of people, it's retail, right? You get a lot of, dispensaries are opening up. They're done with compliance and regulations. It's the retail position, the bud tender position is just that entry level position. Some people don't want to, we'll just do a little bit of training. Some don't want to take the time, do too much. There's others that create these great programs or use great companies like myself. But
like MJ Hybrid Solutions.
But I think some people still don't realize, like they forget like how important it is to have that, and that should be a number one priority. And I hear it all the time when I talk to consultants and stuff that's missing in these people's business development plans. they get so caught up because there's so much compliance and regulation. You're not used to that. It's not like any other industry. So then you sweep that under the rug.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It ends up low on the totem pole.
People always say that to me, like, you have to train people how to sell weed. That should be easy. I was like, oh, man, my friend.
Not necessarily. Not if you want to have people.
The number one reason I get thing when I ask people going into a dispensary for the first time, even people that have smoked before, it's like, it's overwhelming. I mean, even my friends that like have just used to buy weed, a bag of weed all the time and smoke all through college, whatever. Now they go in, it's cool, but they're like, man, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Overwhelming for them. Like, imagine people who've never even really tried it or just now.
And that's the thing. It is overwhelming, and they just don't know where to start, and they don't have any.
And you have one bad experience because the bud tender tells you to take 50 milligram edible because that's what they take.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how many times I've heard that story. And
I wanted to jump off an airplane once from taking too much. So
yeah, I'll tell you.
Airplanes don't go.
I know. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of considerations that you have to really, really be educated. And so I love the fact that you're in the space and that you're doing this. So tell me, what's your feeling on how the industry is different today than it was when you were first getting started? I mean, has there been a lot of changes within the industry?
So there has been, but it's like still kind of the same in the sense that everything is always constantly changing.
Yeah.
Hence one reason why I don't really care to do compliance training, because that's always changing. Like, it's hard to develop and go through that because it is constantly changing because everyone's still learning.
Right.
But I think the biggest difference, 6 years ago, it was like you're fighting tooth and nail to get people to want to sell CBD or want to, try cannabis. You had family members laughing at me when I got in the industry and whatever. Now it's 6 years later, everyone in their freaking family wants to be in the industry. My family members are calling me. My uncle is, people that I know that would never want to tell anyone are using cannabis, and I'm sending it to them because they don't want to go into a dispensary. And
yes,
so it's cool to see that shift. But then with that comes the mess of all these people jumping in because they think that they're seeing green signs. They're thinking it's this get rich quick. I always, I'd put out an Indeed for a sales rep in Michigan, and I called the guy. And I'm like, yeah, so what makes you want to get into the cannabis industry? He's like, I mean, everyone's doing it. It just seems like I can make a lot of money. And I started laughing. Like, I didn't mean to, because I'm not trying. I'm like, oh man.
Not exactly that way.
There are some people, if they started, especially with CBD products, right? If you started in e-commerce 4 or 5 years ago, and you knocked it and you were on top of it, you could make millions, or you're probably making a lot of money right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get in the last 2 years, the competition rises and all these things come into place, and then all the federal regulations. So it's not as easy. It's taking longer.
It is
a long-term game. So you have to really.
I can attest to that with NurseMark CBD products. It's kill or be killed out there, and it's tough to say, well, my product's better than your product.
Well, that's the next thing is now everybody has all these cool, like, oh, my product's nano this or does this. It's this new technology. And it's like, it's not about that anymore. Now you got to figure out who your customer is. I get you can have a wide customer range, but you got to figure out who you're speaking to.
You really do.
And educate from their level of understanding. Then they're going to trust you and trust your product.
Exactly.
So many products. No one even knows what nano means anyway. So that's literally probably the number one word I've heard the most this last year.
Yeah, I know. And it's still,
we still don't even know if nano really works with CBD.
It's still basically bullshit. Yeah.
There's some companies I do that
encapsulation and nanotechnology and all of that stuff. Listen, it's still just all not proven.
Yeah, there's no science research. It's still early, so it's.
Yeah.
But it is we come from an education side. You do both, right? You have a product and you're educating, so you kind of have to. It's a slippery slope in that. Doing the right things, you probably know, okay, as an educator, I got to be careful with what I say about selling my CBD product.
Well, yeah. So I actually have like two different trainings, right? I have one that I give to the public because I can't say anything about research and studies and any of the stuff because the FDA will be like, boom, But on the other side, if I'm talking to the nursing and the healthcare community, like I'm talking about the research studies. I'm talking about how it's working within the body specifically, as we know today in the research that's been done. So yeah, it's a weird dual existence, right? It's
And there's
strange.
just even, you go to these events and there's just still a lot of misinformation. A lot of people that have started these companies, bless their heart, I don't think it's their fault, but they really don't, like, they're getting so confused. Let's talk about broad spectrum, right? Broad spectrum, that word was only created to help distinguish the difference of a product with no THC in it,
exactly.
or 0.0001.
I know. I mean, I've had some.
But, then you go to these events and it's like, well, broad spectrum is under the point. Now there's, because the hemp farm bill, so now 0.03 is allowed, or 0.3, whatever.
Yeah,
now that
0.3%. Yeah. Yeah.
I had to question myself, like, am I wrong? Like, because people start telling you these things. But yeah, and then they're like, well, spectrum, there's still 0.3, or it's under 0.3.
I tell you, I have
illegal. And I'm like,
I've totally cringed like many times in conversation. I actually had a guest on the podcast one time, and she was just going on and on and on, and I'm like, oh, honey, you're so wrong.
No,
I don't want to call you out right here. But no, none of what you said right there is actually based on fact. But thanks for playing. See you soon.
But it's true. Again, going back, when you have a product you're trying to sell, you're going to try to figure out a way to make your product stand out.
Right.
And that's when everyone drops the boat. And that's when I got into it, because it was the second company I worked with. When I would go out to these sales meetings, the owner, because it was just so new, like, oh, we want to go. And it's like the second we get there, it's like, well, let me tell you about this. This is my background, X, Y, and Z, and this is what the patch is. You take it off, and this is how it's applied, and this is the background of it. And I'm like, they don't give a shit. No offense. Sorry if I cursed.
No, that's all right. You can use profanity on this. Nurse Mark really, really loves profanity, so go ahead.
But it's like, these people don't care about the specifics. Like, you're as an herbal medicine doctor, like, they don't care about that. They want to know if it's going to make them money. They're sales reps, or they're distributors. Like, how can they sell the product to make money?
Right.
And so that's all I saw, was just like, everyone loves their product, which I get it. Like, you're helping people, right? Your product like, most products can help someone, but it's just like, when you're sitting there vomiting these, why your product's so great, and this is not, you're losing.
Doesn't matter.
So I was like, yeah, even at events, like, here's a tip for you guys. First thing you should always do is understand your customer. Like, why are you here? What do you know about CBD or cannabis? What are you looking for? Mm-hmm. Don't go into your product. Because you know how many times people go into their product or start educating me on CBD, and then I'm like, yeah, actually, I'm a CBD trainer. I've been in 6 years. Yeah. Like, I try not to throw it at them. I try to ease into that, because I'm just like,
yeah, I know.
I had no clue you didn't even ask.
You're modest. You're humble.
For 20 minutes. And ask me one question. And trying to talk to me about how CBD is the best thing on the face of this planet, and this 5 milligrams is going to cure my cancer.
See what it's done for my hair? See what it's done for my hair? My hair is beautiful because of CBD. I had a full head of hair before I started taking CBD. Yeah.
I know. I do. I love saying when people be like, oh, you don't look 36. I'll be like, or you have good skin. I'll be like, well, I started taking CBD 5 years ago. Like, I got in, I've been on the CBD train for a while.
Absolutely. It's all about the CBD. I'm 74 now, and I'm looking pretty good for 74 because I've been on CBD for, the past 3 months. No, kidding. It's been years now. Yeah. So it's an interesting business still. What do you think is going to happen to all these CBD providers? Where are they going to be in another year or two?
I definitely think there's going to be a lot falling off. People that just like a lot of e-commerce, a lot of people that thought they could just, go, let's get a tincture and a gummy and sell it without really having that education or piece of getting into their customer base, getting networking, whatever. Yeah. There's going to be a lot that will fall off. I think obviously once FDA sets its guidelines and stuff, those type of things, that's going to be a game changer. So the people that are doing it the right way, as long as you can sustain through this time and do it the right way, then you'll come out on the other end, and it will narrow down, and then,
yep.
Okay. You may not make millions. You may just, be okay with your small retail business, CBD retail business that brings in $100K a month, a year or whatever. These CBD retail stores, that has me curious as well. I think eventually some of them are going to have to, it can't just be a CBD retailer. It's going to have to be other vitamins or other health products. You have to get creative. I think they're great in these states right now that doesn't have medical marijuana or even recreational cannabis at all. And so it's great because these other states are now starting to learn. And we realize we go to the other states, right? And you don't realize that how uneducated people are because we're around it all the time.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm from Massachusetts and it's been rec since 2016. So it's just, it's commonplace. Everybody knows you can get, cannabis on any street, not any street corner. There's certain dispensaries, but well, actually, you can get it on any street corner. It depends on if you want to be legal or the black market. But, it's always been there. But now we have dispensaries, right? So, yeah, you're right. It's like second nature. Now I live in New York City and it's not a rec state.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Like, what is going on? This is kind of crazy.
Your joint walking down the street.
Like, no, it's weird. It's a weird thing, but they're definitely headed towards legalization here. So, which is a good thing if they do it right.
Yeah, it's hard because a lot, with regulation, it's still new. And, a lot of people like to compare it to the alcohol industry when that prohibition ended. Obviously you hate to compare alcohol to cannabis, but when it comes to the regulations and compliance.
Yeah. The way the industry rolled out, you're right.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah. Or like the wine, you look at wine and craft wine. And so it's kind of Gary Vee always says that because he comes from the alcohol industry, his family does. And now, he has a marketing company in cannabis and that's what he says. Like it's a 10-year game plan. Like it's similar to that. There's going to be regulation changes. It's new for everyone. Things are going to change. It's going to weed out the bad players eventually too, but it's also at the beginning hurting, especially like as you've seen here in California, it's going to weed out a lot of the great people, the people that paved the way for us.
Right.
And it sucks because these little small mom and pop shops, when you get these regulations and taxes and stuff, and you can't afford it.
They don't have the deep pockets. They don't have the investment dollars.
Big corporate comes in, and these small guys, they don't want to work with big corporate because that's everything against what they believe in. And so then
absolutely.
But it's going to hurt them. And a lot of them have given up or they've stayed in the black market because they had no choice.
That's still an issue that they talk about is that, the black market's still strong and viable in California. Yeah. And they've been, at the forefront of legal cannabis for a long time. And yet there's still a black market.
Now, these dispensaries, I'm sure the black market too, but these dispensaries are there are lines out the door right now with the coronavirus. Everyone's stocking up, if they're going to close down. And
yeah, I just saw a link that said that Colorado, one of the dispensaries there just closed on its own, said, nope, we're not going to do it because of the coronavirus. They shut down because there was an uptick in the amount of people that were showing up.
Yep. And so then you get the uptick, you get more people coming in.
There were more people coming in and they were crowded and they said, no, this isn't healthy. We're not going to do it.
Yeah, they do need to have a little control because I can see them. I know obviously right now they're just shutting down the groceries or not the grocery stores, the restaurants and, bars and use anything that's like. So obviously I think cannabis as right now, it should stay open because it is. Some people rely on it to survive. It's their medicine, right? And, but like you said, as it picks up, if it's getting busy, there's got to be some things put in place. Because I drove by one today and I saw it, just the line like out and around, and I'm like, it's great, they're killing it, and they probably love it because in case they have to close down, it's going to hurt a lot, especially in California because everyone's struggling in California.
Right.
The taxes. So if they do have to shut down, it is going to hurt them for a little bit, and that's what I actually put out an article today. You got to get through it. To get out, you have to go through it, right? But the article basically just gave some tips on like, if you do have to close your shop or it does slow down for a few weeks, like now is the time to use that to build the relationships with your employees, to understand where they're at, to
invest in your employees. They have time to train.
Cool. Have them online doing the online training, preferably MJ hybrid, but it can be there's multiple ones that they can do.
No, MJ, there's only one that they should do. It's MJ hybrid solutions. Let's get it right because of course the only CBD that anybody should use should be Nurse Mark's CBD products, right? Yeah. Hey, I know I formulated with a pharmacist. I know what I'm doing. I put it all together.
You're a nurse. You know it.
I know all of this stuff, right? So I firmly believe that they should because I know what I'm doing and you know what you're doing. Yeah. You have great programming and training that's put together. And you know what? It goes back to what you said earlier. And that is it'll increase their sales if they have knowledgeable people in the slot in that sales position.
Increase their customer loyalty and help reduce their liability because we're going to start seeing that a lot more,
I was going to bring that up.
people are going to start blaming dispensaries or lawsuits of that messing them up, realizing it. And
right.
so you have to be careful. I mean, cannabis.
Well, it's like the, goes back to, you mentioned alcohol. Bars get hit all the time with overserving, right?
Yep,
there's an accident after the fact. You know what? They get sued, boy. They get
that
sued
happened in
big.
Texas recently. A bartender got jail time, I think.
For overserving. Yeah, so it's a thing, and I think you're right. I think you're going to see that in the cannabis marketplace. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. It's great. And we're in a time that it's that both. You're trying to make sales. You're trying to compete, right? Just like CBD online, you're trying to compete, but it's hard because if you have a dispensary up the street, you want them to be trained, or you want them to be knowledgeable just as much as you are doing and putting and investing in your people, because at the same time, it's still the stigma, and we're still all in this together, and we still have to get over the federal legalization hump, right? So any issues that come up, or any wrongdoing, or any customer that goes in and gets a bad product, or they have a bad experience, they're not going to want to come back or try it again, right? I get that all the time with CBD, because they just buy a CBD product and take the 5 milligrams and think it's going to cure their pain like a Vicodin.
And it's not like that. It's not like that. And so,
you have to give it time, build it up slowly.
It's an education. It's an education.
And so it is. And that's how you fight. We have to get over that stigma together. So everyone needs to be on it. You want your people, you want your competitor to be like, you look at a lot of especially the CBD side, you're looking at a lot of these bad guys in here, right? And people are getting so frustrated because they're ruining it for the industry, because they're coming in, selling, lying about their freaking CBD isolate. It's probably like crystal meth for all we know, it's like.
I know. Let's hope not. Oh my gosh.
So they're changing the tests to because it's a dog eat dog world out there right now with CBD. And
it is. Yeah.
But we're also just at the beginning. Look at we still have so many more cannabinoids to learn about. You're hearing CBN.
So much more to know.
But there's just slowly and surely, we might find out. That's what I always joke. We might find out in 5 years that maybe it really wasn't the THC that was doing some of the stuff in the flower. Maybe it was something completely else. We just assumed it was just because THC. We know that.
Right. Yeah.
You joke, but it could be true. It could not. There's just, we don't know.
We don't know. But research is going on. Not in the United States as much, but research is being done. And
that's the other thing. I mean, I know a lot of people are scared and don't want to, don't like to put it out there that they use cannabis, especially the older people, the church, the churchgoers. It's like, I kind of always joke, so, you have your closet Trump fans. Obviously there are Trump fans out there if he won or if he's winning or whatever. Yeah. But it's like cannabis, the same thing. You got your closet cannabis people that don't want to admit that they use cannabis.
I talk to them all the time. Yeah. I do speaking events at residential facilities.
Helping people. And because if that works for you, you need to tell people. My uncle said that to me. He's like, no, at the family, it's great. Got me off Ambien, but no one knows yet. And I'm like,
right. And nobody's going to know. You're just going to be quiet.
And Judy, she's probably taking 4 pills a night. You could help her.
I know. And having taken Ambien before, I'll say, it's good to be off of it.
It's good to be off.
That's some kick-ass hypnotics there.
That was the first sleeping pill I was prescribed in college when I went to the doctor and playing volleyball. I played college volleyball.
Yeah.
And I went for sleeping problems. That was the first thing they prescribed me, but I did not like it. And I'm so glad I did not like it. Do you
have any Ambien stories? Did you sleepwalk? Did you sleep eat? Was there any, crazy activities?
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember doing anything crazy. My biggest thing with it was in the morning, I just felt crappy.
Hungover, right? Just lethargic.
Hangover.
I have a really good Ambien story and it's a beauty. So I was married at the time and, I'm in bed and I'm dreaming, because you dream a lot with this particular drug. And I'm dreaming that I really have to pee. And I'm at this big mansion and I'm walking around with my best friend's mom and we're talking and we're looking for the bathroom, and it goes on for a long, long time in my dream. And then I find it, and it was such a great relief to just pee and be free. It was so good. Yeah. Oh yeah. You know where I'm going with this. I woke up in the morning. I get out of bed. I'm like, why are my pajamas all soaked? Now Look, the bed is all soaked. Like I had completely wet the bed. And like I was, 38, 39 years old. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, I wake my wife up. I'm like, hon, don't roll over. Don't roll over in this direction. Yeah, but that's what happens when you do Ambien, right? You don't
I've
know.
heard about people that like love to they get on they start online shopping or
yes, you have no idea. You look like you're awake, right? Okay, so my point of talking about that is I've never had that experience with cannabis. And I sleep great when I have just a little THC before bed. I sleep like a baby and I've never wet the bed. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's important to know. Yeah. I'm glad I could share that story with everybody. I hope that helps somebody out there not to feel the shame of having wet the bed.
Whether we've got Ambien or not.
Oh my gosh.
I have a very small bladder. I use the restroom quite frequently.
So you get up. Well, that might be your problem.
I've gotten a lot better. I've learned to relax. And a lot of it too, that's going back to when I was taking Tylenol PM that has Benadryl in it. I think the doctor said that can activate your bladder. Cause I was I went to a doctor about it to why do I had to get up once or twice a night to pee, but it was is it more just now it's anxious? I kind of, you kind of have to know so then you can't go back to sleep because you're I'm gonna have to get up and pee at some point.
Oh yeah.
So anyways, So there are factors like Tylenol PM can actually activate that. So then it would make you feel like you have to go more. So anyways.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But when you're cannabis, you're relaxed. It's great.
Health, happiness, cannabis. We love that. So do you want to share some contact info for folks? It's going to be up on the show notes. So it'll be everywhere that we have this awesome podcast up online. But if you want to share some contact info now, so folks who are listening can just immediately, wherever they are, contact you.
Yeah. The website, mjhybridsolutions.com.
Mm-hmm.
And my email is easy. It's just mj@mjhybridsolutions.com. So I go by MJ, Melissa Jane. Ironic, huh?
See how that works?
That landmark, that leadership course, man.
Yes, the SELP, baby.
Because I didn't actually really go by MJ. I didn't even until I got into the cannabis industry. And then a friend of mine was like, I'm going to call you MJ. And I'm like, well, my name's Melissa Jane. And I loved MJ. I used to say I wanted to name my kid MJ, the initials.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like,
what, this never occurred to you?
It didn't. No.
In this business? I know. Oh my God. There couldn't be a better name than MJ.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm Melissa Jane. It totally works, So then that's going. And then when I was coming up with my company, the training system, it's MJ hybrid. It's a cross training of sales and education.
Yep.
And so the MJ hybrid training system. And then for the company name.
And here you are.
So
here you are. You're supposed to be here. It's perfect.
Yeah, I am.
Oh yeah.
I am. We got to keep educating one person at a time, one group at a time, and that ripple effect. It's that 10x, 100x effect, right? If I can teach people that are facing consumers how to talk to them and do it the right way, and not only help their company increase sales, but then help educate and create that trust with that consumer, they're going to continue to tell others, right? And then it's just a ripple effect.
Yes.
That's how you end the stigma. And then
that's how you end the stigma.
Social equity piece. We got to help these people incarcerated that have been, paving the way. People that are in that position.
Yeah, they've paid the price. Communities, people have paid the price for sure. Absolutely.
You don't realize I always like to give them shout outs when I do podcasts because
you know what? I agree. I'm passionate about that side of it.
So I want to be able to do free trainings or people skill training for incarcerated people. That's my next goal is once this, get through this little rough hump of what we're going through the last 6 months. It's kind of going to where I can be able to offer that as something to give back. And it's great. There's a lot of cannabis companies that give back, which is great. So we have a long ways to go, but
we have a long way to go. Long way.
Bad actors, but there's a lot of great people in this industry.
Yeah, there are. Yeah. You know what? I would agree with you having been around here for 2.5 years or so. I would agree with you. Great people involved in this industry, people who care about other people, right?
Yeah.
Who really see the benefit in the cannabis plant and in using it responsibly. So yeah, it's great. So I usually like to ask a what I call deep questions with Nurse Mark. So we've reached that part of the show where I get to ask you a question, and I always love to think about, well, what do I want to know from MJ? I think I'm going to ask you. Now I did the crazy. What's your most treasured memory?
Ever? Or
Ever. Not like in the last 5 minutes, and not the fact that you're on the Nurse Mark podcast, although this will be, one of your most treasured memories, I'm sure. But let's just step back from that one. In your life?
Like my favorite, I feel like my most accomplished favorite thing was through that leadership self-expression program when I put on the 5K for Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. So my sister had been doing runs when my nephew, he passed away. It's been like 11 years, almost 11 years. He just had his 11th birthday and he was 6 months when he passed away.
Oh no.
He put on, I kind of brought the idea to her, but at the time she was the good executor, right? And I was like, we should do these runs or raise money. And so she like put it all together and started doing them in Arizona. So then when I went through that leadership program, I was like, well, it makes sense. I should do a 5K here to partner up with the heart hospital. I became really close with this girl who just had a baby with a heart defect, this military family, and got them involved to help. And to me, that was my greatest. I mean, I won state champion for volleyball in high school and was the Arizona Volleyball Player of the Year, which is great. But nothing compares to like being able to execute and put something together that you're not necessarily getting paid for, right? You're giving back. So it's to give back to these families to help support them because they have to be in hospitals for weeks at a time when their kids are in surgery. They can't work or the driving, the gas. A lot of them don't have the money.
Right.
My sister was very fortunate with both sides of the family being able to help out a lot. And so, that was, I feel like my most accomplished because not only one, you're giving back, putting that, but I put it together. Obviously I had a ton of help, but I executed and put it together, followed through on it. And that's what really gave me, even though I have a master's degree in leadership, that really gave me that leadership experience or that like, okay, if I wanted to start a business or if I want to do something, I can do that. Like,
right.
I have that in there. So that to me is like one of my favorite.
And that, so for folks who don't,
One Love. It was a One Heart, One Love 5K.
One Heart, One Love. That's a great project. For folks who don't know what she's referring to, Landmark Worldwide, which both she and I have done, has really a life training program, and they call it the curriculum for living. And the last one that you do is called the Self-Expression Leadership Program. And you get to create a nonprofit that's going to benefit the world. And some crazy, amazing things have come out of that SELP program. Yeah. And you just described one that is just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of if you go through that program was probably, I got my master's degree. I even went to law school for a year. That's the one thing I dropped out of and finished with law school, which I'm grateful I did. I should but I met some great people in there.
Yeah.
You learn every experience. But I think the Landmark Forum, I've done Tony Robbins, going to these type of seminars and these leadership programs are just invaluable. And you meet great people, you learn great things.
Absolutely agree.
That education and life experience. And so to me, that's what shaped me the most was that Landmark. And it took me 7 years to finally do it. And my friend,
it's, that's just the way it is.
You can't force anyone to do it because
no, not at all. You can just you can take a stand that somebody's going to end up there when they do, they do. Yep. And I have lifelong friends now from that program. And it's just amazing. And here's one right now, MJ.
Yep.
Lifelong friend now. Awesome. Yep. So any last words?
Martinez.
That's right. Shout out to Ricky Martinez. And actually, I had him on the podcast last week. And that's how we met was through Rick Martinez, another great entrepreneur and leader in the cannabis industry. Yeah. So any last words before we wrap it up?
All I can say is if you're in this industry, keep pushing, keep fighting. No, it's a long-term game. If you're looking at getting in, figure out where your niche is, what you can bring to the industry, but make sure you educate. Get in, understand the plant. You have to respect it. You have to respect where it comes from. You have to respect people. So even if you don't consume, you don't have to consume, but you need to understand it, and you need to understand cannabis. So that's how, educate. You don't have, I have education courses only. So I can do training for people that aren't consumer facing or in sales. They can do cannabis education only courses. So if you are interested, reach out, go to mjhybridsolutions.com, and you can check out education courses. You can purchase individual ones to learn specifically, but educate yourself, understand, respect where it came from. I always say you have to know where it came from to know where it's going.
That's right. That's right.
Got a long way to go, but it's fun to be a part of, huh?
I am so thankful that you took the time to be a guest on the podcast. And much success to you and MJ Hybrid Solutions in the future. And that's a wrap, folks. Hey, folks, thanks for listening to the Nurse Mark podcast this week with our guest, Melissa Jane Stapley. I hope you got a sense of why it's important to have a training program for dispensary personnel and what it's like for a female entrepreneur in this space to get a business off the ground. The challenges, and rather it's not sales, it's more about consultation. So thanks again for listening. This is your host, Nurse Mark, saying health, happiness, cannabis.